what's going on, everybody? This is Catch, Hook, and Shoot. My name's Tom. I am your host. Today is Monday, December 31st. It's New Year's Eve, 2018. Hope everybody's having a great holiday so far. And I want to thank everybody for spending just a little part of your holiday with me, checking the show out. Thanks everybody who's been listening and watching on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, any place you find podcasts, as well as watching on YouTube and Twitch. Hope everybody's following on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Search Catch, Hook, Shoot. You should be able to find any of our pages. And as always, if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's catchhookshoot@gmail.com. So let's see what's going on in the world of wrestling this week. It's actually been a slow couple of weeks because most of the shows are for WWE are recorded this week so that the superstars have some time off, which is good. So nothing really huge going on. This past week on Raw, we had a match with Natalya challenging Ronda Rousey for the Raw Women's Championship. This was actually a really good match. A lot of good back and forth between the two, and a really, really good, solid wrestling match between Natty and Ronda. And, of course, Ronda did retain the title. Pretty major announcement was made on the show, though, by Vince McMahon. He officially announced there would be women's tag team titles coming in 2019. Also announced the return of John Cena to Raw and SmackDown. On SmackDown this week, we had Rusev defeating Shinsuke Nakamura to become the new United States champion. And then probably the big thing from SmackDown was a backstage segment at the end of the show between Vince and AJ Styles. Vince basically saying he wants to see, the quote-unquote animal inside, and basically wants to see a more vicious side of AJ Styles. Slapped AJ across the face, which caused AJ to pretty much lay Vince out with a punch to the face. So obviously Vince is still okay with taking bumps, being in his mid-70s. So it was a pretty good segment. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with AJ going forward after this. Another interesting note from during the week, Sports Illustrated put out their top 10 women's wrestlers of 2018. And 8 out of those 10 were all WWE women, which is no big surprise, because WWE is kind of like the mainstream, But 2 of the women on the list, and very well deserved, were independent stars. Actually, both are with Impact Wrestling. But Tessa Blanchard was one, and number 10 on the list, I think it was kind of a surprise to a lot of people, but definitely well deserved, is Jordynne Grace. I'd have to say she is probably the fastest rising woman in pro wrestling right now. She recently signed with Impact. Has been having a great showing on their weekly show, and I'm interested to see what's going to go on with her for 2019. It would not surprise me at all to see her in the Mae Young Classic this year if she's able to. I don't know, contractually how that works with Impact, but it would, like I said, wouldn't surprise me at all to see her in the Mae Young Classic for 2019. So that's really about it for this week. Of course, Wrestle Kingdom is coming up on this Friday, January the 4th. New Japan's biggest show of the year, and it, for the first time, will be broadcast the same day here in the U.S. on Access TV. I believe it's at 8 p.m. Eastern that it's being shown. So it's still recorded, obviously, but it will be shown the same day. So that's about as close to live as you can get, unless you are a subscriber to the New Japan World streaming service and want to be up at 2 a.m. to check out the show live. But it's a stacked card, which is no surprise for New Japan. I'm going to run through it real quick here. First off, we've got a gauntlet match to determine the number 1 contenders for the Never Openweight 6-man tag team titles. We've got the Most Violent Players versus Yuji Nagata, Jeff Cobb, and Dave Finlay versus Chaos, consisting of Hiroki Goto, Beretta, and Chucky T, versus Suzuki Gun, which is Minoru Suzuki, Lance Archer, and Davey Boy Smith Jr., versus the Elite, Hangman Page, Takahashi, and Marty Scurll. Next up, we've got the singles match for the Never Openweight Championship. Kota Ibushi, the champion, versus Will Ospreay. This obviously is going to be a ridiculous match. These are two of the best indie guys in the world right now, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that one. think that'll probably be shown on Access next week. But let's see, then we've got a three-way tag team match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles. Suzuki Gun were the champions versus Roppongi 3K versus Bushi and I'm sorry, I'm horrible with the Japanese names, but Los Ingobernables de Japan. I think I said that right. So those are the three teams going for the junior heavyweight tag titles. Next, we've got a single match for the British Heavyweight Championship. Tomohiro Ishii versus Zack Sabre Jr. Zack Sabre, probably one of the best technical wrestlers in the world right now. I'd say probably, him and Jonathan Gresham, probably the two best as far as mat wrestlers go in the world right now. We've got a three-way tag team match for the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team titles. The Gorillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga and Tangaloa, versus Sonata and Evil versus the Young Bucks. So this one, again, should be a crazy match. I'm looking forward to seeing, the Gorillas of Destiny versus the Bucks, and Sonata and Evil thrown into the mix too. It's gonna be a great match. Singles match for the United States Championship, Cody Rhodes versus Juice Robinson. Then we've got a singles match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, Kushida versus Taiji Ishimori. Then we've got Jay White versus Kazuchika Okada. Okada, top guy in New Japan. He's really the standard bearer for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Jay White, of course, now is the new leader of the Bullet Club. So basically, we got Bullet Club versus Chaos here. So should be, and Jay White, of course, formerly a member of Chaos. Just recently, he, along with Jado and Gato, turned on Okada and Chaos, so pretty much of a grudge match here between these two. And then we've got the double main event here for the Intercontinental Championship. We've got Chris Jericho versus Naito, and for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, Kenny Omega versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. So, and those are the two matches that are going to be shown on Friday on Access TV for the Intercontinental Championship and the Heavyweight Championship. So, those are the two matches I'm looking forward to the most. I don't know if any of you guys had a chance to check out the Kenny Omegathon that Access showed this past Friday. Showed all of his matches with Okada, and it was a lot of stuff that I personally hadn't seen. So it was really, just a really great compilation of Omega's matches, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing those two matches this coming Friday. And that's really all I've got for this week. Of course, I've got part 3 of my top 100 of all time. Now, I'll say it again. This is the top 100 male singles wrestlers of all time, in my opinion, as always. And I tried to make it a more complete list. By including, women, tag teams, things like that, to make it kind of a definitive top 100 of all time, but it just wasn't possible. I couldn't narrow it down to include everything in a single list, so I just decided to make this list my top 100 male singles wrestlers of all time. I've got 2 more lists that I'll be going through on future episodes, which are the top women of all time and the top tag teams of all time, after this episode is posted today, I will be posting the complete list on social media, so you'll be able to go back and look through the entire list. Let me know, do you agree, do you disagree, do you think I've got some people too high, too low? I know everybody's going to have a different opinion on this, and who should and shouldn't be on the list. So I as always, I welcome your comments, questions, criticisms, anything at all. Feel free to drop me a comment, shoot me an email, whatever you like. So let's get right down to it here. The final part of this list, which is the top 34. Starting off with number 34, I've got Rowdy Roddy Piper. Multi-time champion in the NWA. He's been United States champion. He's been the Intercontinental champion in WWE, and really just the number one heel for the mid 80s for WWE. He was kind of the Hulk Hogan's top nemesis in the first WrestleMania, and really for a good few years there. Really the only really long-term rivalry that Hulk Hogan had during his time as WWE champion. Because the way that WWE typically worked is, Hogan was the perennial babyface champion, and he always had some big monster heel, coming in to try to take the championship off of him, and it was a formula and it worked at the time. So he never really had a big rivalry like in the NWA. You had Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair, and that rivalry went on for years. You didn't really see that in the WWE. So Piper was really the only quote unquote nemesis that Hogan had during his tenure as WWE champion. I guess you could say Bobby Heenan would be another one, because more times than not it was a member of the Heenan family that was going after Hogan, like King Kong Bundy, Big John Studd, Andre the Giant, things like that. It was always Heenan trying to dethrone Hogan with one of his guys. But as far as, an in-ring rival, Piper was really the most long-term rival that Hogan had, and he fit that part very well. The two of them just had great chemistry, even up through the WCW, when they were kind of on opposite sides, where Hogan was the heel and Piper was the babyface. The rivalry carried on for many years with these two, and they, like I said, had such great chemistry with each other, no matter who was the heel or who was the babyface. Number 33 is Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig, former AWA World Heavyweight Champion, Intercontinental Champion in WWE, also a Tag Team Champion in the AWA, and United States Champion in WCW, and really was probably one of the greatest mat wrestlers of all time, and one that unfortunately we lost way too soon. Number 32, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Perennial babyface, never had a heel turn, and that's very rare for somebody to remain a babyface or even a heel throughout their entire career. But that's exactly what Ricky Steamboat did. He has been the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, was a Tag Team Champion in NWA, Intercontinental Champion in WWE, had what most people consider to be the greatest WrestleMania match of all time versus Randy Savage at WrestleMania 3, and then again, probably the best three-match series, what a lot of people consider the best three-match series of all time, versus Ric Flair and the NWA for the NWA Championship in the late 80s. And even prior to that, prior to his WWE run in the late 70s and very early 80s against Ric Flair in the NWA, just one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Number 31 is Nick Bockwinkel, former multi-time AWA World Heavyweight Champion. Was really the guy that Verne Gagne kind of passed the AWA torch to when he retired from the ring. And Bockwinkel, just the kind of the quintessential arrogant heel, not necessarily the pretty boy arrogant heel, but the I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, I'm more sophisticated than you type heel, really along the same lines as Ric Flair, and just a great champion, great heel. If you ever have the chance to go back and look at any of his matches, any of his promos, Nick Bockwinkel, one of the best promo guys of all time, in my opinion, and just all around great. Number 30, Chris Jericho, still one of the top guys in the business even today after a very long career through ECW, WCW, WWE, and now New Japan. He's pretty much just all over the place and can do anything and everything, and he has just gotten better and better every year as he's gone on. You don't see him as much as you did when he was full-time with WWE. He's not on TV every week or anything like that, but any appearance he makes now has a purpose and makes an impact. And currently the IWGP Intercontinental Champion, 9-time Intercontinental Champion in WWE, so a total of 10 times Intercontinental Champion. That's never been done before. First ever undisputed WWE World Champion, defeat, as he will tell you any chance he gets, defeated The Rock and Stone Cold in the same night to win both the WWE Championship and WCW Championship. And still to this day, one of the top guys in the world. Even as long as he's been in the business, even today, I would put him among the top 5 or 10 in the world right now. Number 29, Bob Backlund. This is the guy. He pretty much was the WWE in the mid to late 70s and early 80s. Had a 6-year run as world champion, and really was the you talk about 70s wrestling. Bob Backlund was the guy. Had another brief title run again in the early 90s, after making a comeback, and just one of the best all-around athletes to ever set foot in a ring. Number 28, Dory Funk Jr. Now, if Bob Backlund was the WWE in the 70s, Dory Funk Jr. was the NWA in the 60s and 70s. World heavyweight champion, and just by all accounts, one of the greatest of all time. Has trained some of the greats since then, and he and his brother Terry Funk, the only brother duo to both hold the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Moving on to number 27, Jake the Snake Roberts, one of my all-time favorites. If we're talking favorites rather than bests, he'd be in my top 5 without a doubt. Probably the greatest ring psychologist of all time, one of the greatest to never hold the World Heavyweight Championship, and obviously that had nothing to do with his ability, more had to do with the personal issues that he had outside of the ring. And but fast forward to today, by all accounts, he's doing great. Has made a great career for himself as a public speaker, and doing like a one-man show now. Has really turned his life around. He's in the WWE Hall of Fame right now. If you ever get a chance to watch the documentary that Diamond Dallas Page put out, The Resurrection of Jake the Snake, watch it. If you're a fan of Jake the Snake, check that documentary out. I guarantee it will bring tears to your eyes. It did for me. And just one of my all-time favorites, and very, very happy to see where he's at in life right now, to see that he's doing so well. Number 26, Kurt Angle, first and only Olympic gold medalist in amateur wrestling to make the transition to professional wrestling. And by all accounts, it was a seamless transition. Came in, became one of the top heels, won pretty much every title there was to win in the WWE in his first year in the business. And, he's still going today. Again, like Jericho, he's not in the ring every week or anything like that. He's had a myriad of injuries throughout his career, mostly having to do with his neck, but he'll still get in there and go. And when he does get in that ring, he hasn't lost a step. And probably, in my opinion, the greatest wrestler. I mean, just pure wrestling, in-ring ability, technical wrestling. Kurt Angle is the best wrestler of all time. Moving on to number 25, another guy that's one of my all-time favorites is Sting. The franchise, WCW as he was called, probably one of the most loyal guys when it comes to loyalty to his company. During the Monday Night Wars, one of the very few who did not jump ship to the WWE when I know he could have. I'm sure Vince McMahon would have welcomed him with open arms, but he moved from WCW to TNA, which was kind of the successor, so to speak, for WCW, as being the only company in the early 2000s to even attempt to give some competition to WWE. And he's been a world champion everywhere he's gone, with the exception of WWE, unfortunately. I know one match that myself and millions of fans all over the place have wanted to see for so many years is Sting versus Undertaker. Unfortunately, probably never going to get that, but it's nice to dream, and it was good to see him finally perform inside a WWE ring. I wasn't too happy with the matches that he was given, but they were very good matches. I'm not knocking Triple H or Seth Rollins at all. They both put on really good matches with Sting. I just, I don't know why they didn't go with the match that everybody wanted to see, but it is what it is. And of course, WWE Hall of Famer, well deserved, and one of the best careers in wrestling. Number 24, Mil Mascaras. Now, I'm sure everybody's at least heard the name Mil Mascaras. Probably as far as popularity goes, the biggest masked Mexican wrestler of all time, TV, movie star, just Mr. Everything in Mexico when it comes to Mexican wrestling. Number 23, Giant Baba, founder of All Japan Pro Wrestling, and just a Japanese legend, and held in very, very high esteem among the Japanese wrestling community. Number 22, Antonio Inoki, along the same lines as Giant Baba. Inoki founded New Japan Pro Wrestling, which obviously is the second biggest wrestling company in the world today. Has wrestled all over the world, had, some legendary matches against Ric Flair, and again, another one held in very high esteem in Japan, and member of the Japanese Parliament, and just one of the probably the greatest in Japanese wrestling history. Number 21, Gorgeous George. This Gorgeous George is probably the original pretty boy, arrogant heel. I mean, really, this was the first person to take advantage of television, which was a new thing in those days, and use it to his ultimate advantage, and to just make people hate him. And you still to this day you see his influence in people like Ric Flair, people like a Nick Bockwinkel, anybody that's got that kind of pretty boy, I'm better than you, don't touch me, stay away from me, whatever, like an Adrian Adonis, like a Rick Rude, Rick Martel, all of that originated from Gorgeous George. Number 20 is Ed Strangler Lewis. Now, Strangler Lewis was around in a unique time in pro wrestling, when it was still kind of transitioning from what I call the sporting era, when it was actually a competition. There were no predetermined outcomes. It was transitioning to more like what we have today, where it is a predetermined outcome, and the promoter decides who the champion is and things like that. And Strangler Lewis and his group were really the ones who started that up, and kind of controlled the championship at that time, when there was only one world championship. And also, by all accounts, not just somebody who was in control of things, but could actually get in that ring and go. He was somebody who could, he was the perennial champion at the time. And if somebody, tried to pull any funny business when he said, okay, we're going to switch the title tonight, he could take the championship if he had to, if the person decided to go into business for themselves. And, really was the beginning of what I would call the kayfabe era. And he kind of ushered that in and started all of that. So, which, set wrestling on the path to where it is now. Number 19 is El Santo. Pretty much what I would call the father of Mexican wrestling. Not expecting a lot of people to know the name, but go back, look him up, look up his accomplishments. I mean, this is a guy, prior to Mil Mascaras, El Santo was really held up as almost a god of Mexican wrestling. Number 18 is George Hackenschmidt, first ever undisputed world heavyweight wrestling champion in the early 20th century. Again, this is when wrestling was a sport, it was a competition, was no predetermined outcomes, was no choreography, quote unquote, or anything like that. It was more akin to the amateur Olympic style wrestling that you still see today. Would be guys in the ring, trying to grab a hold and just literally wrestling with each other, trying to, get the advantage for hours. You'd see matches go 2 to 3 hours, and, it would be 100% on the mat. You may see somebody holding a headlock for an hour. You may see them, working to grab some type of leg lock for 40, 50 minutes. So George Hackenschmidt was the first ever, like I said, undisputed world heavyweight wrestling champion back in the early 1900s. Number 17 is Ricky Dozan. Now, if El Santo is the father of Mexican wrestling, Ricky Dozan is the father of Japanese wrestling. This is the man who started the first Japanese wrestling company. He trained Antonio Inoki and Giant Baba. And like I said, just, is held in very, very high regard in Japan. Number 16, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, the original Nature Boy, first ever WWF World Champion when WWF split off from the NWA. Buddy Rogers was the man that was declared their first champion. And again, he's one whose influence you can see down through the years, especially in somebody like Ric Flair or like a Shawn Michaels, things like that. And with the bleach blonde hair and just the arrogant attitude, but then could get in the ring and back it up. And Buddy Rogers is the man who lost the championship to Bruno Sammartino, which started his record-setting run, which will never be touched as world champion. Number 15 is Harley Race. Again, another guy, 1970s, the NWA, Harley Race was the man. 7-time world heavyweight champion. And he's the man that kind of passed the torch of the NWA to Ric Flair when his time came, and just an all-around, no nonsense, legit tough guy. I mean, if you listen to the stories from Bobby Heenan and things like that, Harley Race, one of the only men that Andre the Giant actually feared. So that should tell you something right there. Number 14 is Frank Gotch. This is the man who defeated George Hackenschmidt for the World Heavyweight Championship, first American to hold that title, and held it and went undefeated from the time he won it until he retired, which I want to say was about 5 years. And yeah, he was, I guess you could, if you were to compare him to somebody more modern, was kind of the Hulk Hogan of his day. He was a household name. Back then there weren't a lot of sports like there are today. There was no NBA, there was no NFL. Major League Baseball was in its infancy. The only sports you really had, you had golf, you had horse racing, you had boxing, and you had wrestling. And, that was pretty much it. And so Frank Gotch was like I said, the first American to hold a World Heavyweight Championship, and just really got to that same kind of level as far as notoriety and fame that Hulk Hogan did. Number 13 is Lou Thesz. Now, this Thesz was another one in the same kind of era as Strangler Lewis, where wrestling was making that transition from legitimate sport to entertainment. And Lou Thesz, another one, multi-time world heavyweight champion. At the time, the youngest person ever to hold a world heavyweight title, and at one time was actually the oldest person to hold a world heavyweight title, and by all accounts, probably one of, if not the greatest mat wrestler of all time. I mean, he could get in there and go with pretty much anybody. Number 12 is Verne Gagne, founder of the AWA, 10-time AWA World Heavyweight Champion. Really the first one to break away from the NWA and have real success. One of the first territories outside of the WWF to take his territory national, have national cable broadcast, and at times looked like could have been legitimate competition for the WWE, but wasn't meant to be. Tried to do some collaboration with World Class Championship Wrestling as well as the NWA and some of the other territories to put on super shows to kind of compete with WWF, but because of infighting and promoters not getting along, it just never worked. And obviously, we know what happened. All the territories eventually folded, and most of all of the top stars ended up as part of the WWE. Number 11, probably the greatest special attraction of all time, Andre the Giant. It was Andre and Hogan that drew the 93,000 people for WrestleMania 3, which at that time was the biggest match of all time. And pretty much anywhere Andre went, it was gonna be a sellout crowd. There was no doubt about it. That's why he kind of traveled around as much as he did. He was that special attraction. And you never really saw Andre as a champion anywhere, because he didn't really stick around anywhere long enough to be champion. It's like he'd come into a territory, stay for 4 or 6 weeks, draw the big crowds, and then move on to the next one, so that he stayed fresh. Again, like I said, just the greatest special attraction of all time. All right, moving into the top 10. Number 10, we have got my all-time favorite is The Undertaker, as you can see right behind me. But again, along the same lines as Sting, loyalty unquestioned, and by all accounts, the most respected wrestler in the history of the business. Locker room leader. Anytime he steps into a locker room, he is the man in charge. There is no question about that. Has multi-time world champion, like a lot of these guys I've talked about, but and still to this day, anytime he walks into an arena, he's going to get the biggest ovation of the night. I don't care who else is on the card. If the Undertaker is there, the show's all about him. That's just how it is. Number 9, Macho Man Randy Savage. yeah, probably one of the most beloved pro wrestlers of all time. Another one that was lost way, way too soon. WWE Hall of Famer, world champion in WWE and WCW. He's been a babyface, been a heel, and he could pretty much do it all. And one thing that I know has been talked about on a lot of podcasts, specifically with Bruce Pritchard and Conrad Thompson, was a potential feud between Macho Man and Shawn Michaels when Shawn Michaels first kind of split off on his own. That I think might have been one of the greatest feuds in history had it actually came to pass, but unfortunately it didn't. But it's not, it's one of those things that's it's fun to think about, and just kind of do some fantasy booking just to think about where that could have went. Number 8, Bret the Hitman Hart. Again, another one counted among the top technical wrestlers of all time. I'd probably say he and Kurt Angle would be 1 and 2 in any order. I don't think anybody could argue that they would be the top 2 technical wrestlers of all time. One of the pretty much became the top guy after Hulk Hogan left the WWE, and I think kind of showed that shift of what the WWE was all about at that time. Shifting from the larger than life superhero type characters like Hogan to a more realistic type star like a Bret Hart. I think Bret Hart is somebody that more people could actually relate to, whereas Hulk Hogan was more somebody that people looked up to, if that makes any sense to you guys. But yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the most remembered things about Bret was the Montreal Screwjob, unfortunately, because I think that's just kind of like a black mark on everybody involved. But it is what it is. It's one of those things. Vince had to do what was best for his company and things like that. But don't want to get too much into that. But anyway, yeah, definitely one of the greatest champions of all time, and somebody who could really polarize a crowd. Definitely, I mean, when he made his last heel turn in the WWE, he was hated by United States crowds, but then as soon as he crossed that Canadian border, he was getting standing ovations. He was a national hero in Canada, and that wasn't something that you saw a whole lot. So yeah, Bret Hart, number 8. Number 7, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, another one that's unfortunately no longer with us. Yeah, he was the guy in the NWA that was always chasing the titles. That was kind of the NWA's philosophy back then, was you have your heel champion and you have your top baby face who's always chasing that title, and that was Dusty Rhodes, who was chasing Ric Flair as well as Harley Race prior to that, and 3-time world heavyweight champion. Hall of Famer, one of the best bookers of all time. This is a guy that created War Games and a lot of other specialty type matches. Booked a lot of the major shows for the NWA, and just one of the all around greats. Number 6, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Probably the best all around wrestler of all time, between technical skills, high flying, promos, his character. He was the complete package when it comes to professional wrestling. So as like I said, as far as all around, Shawn Michaels probably the best. Multi-time world champion, intercontinental champion, European champion, tag champion, first ever WWE Grand Slam champion, and still, as we saw earlier this year, can still get in that ring and go. So yeah, number 6, Shawn Michaels, another one of my all-time favorites. Getting to the top 5 here. Number 5, we've got The Rock, probably the biggest star in the world right now. Made that transition from pro wrestler into movies, and has become the top box office attraction in the world right now. And at during his time in WWE, he's really one that proved you can reinvent yourself and completely change your character around and revitalize your entire career. I mean, when he first came in as Rocky Maivia, he was not well received at all. And then he made that, he went down with an injury, and when he came back, he made that transition from Rocky Maivia to The Rock, became a heel, joined the Nation of Domination, and his career just skyrocketed from there, and, became one of the most popular WWE stars of all time. Number 4 is Stone Cold Steve Austin, probably the biggest WWE superstar of all time. Again, in that same era with The Rock during the Attitude Era, he's one that came along at just the right time. Another example of, how just changing up your character and making it more true to yourself can completely revitalize and turn a career around. Came in as the ringmaster, didn't talk, had Ted DiBiase for his mouthpiece, but as soon as they let him have a microphone and speak for himself, he skyrocketed and became the #1 guy in the company. And then, I mean, what is there to say about Austin that hasn't already been said a million times? Another multi-time world champion, Hall of Famer, and just one of the greatest of all time. Number 3, Bruno Sammartino. Not the first WWE champion, but the longest reigning WWE champion in history. His first title reign after he defeated Buddy Rogers was 8 years long. Had a second title reign for another 3 years. I mean, 11 plus years total as world champion through 2 reigns. That will never be done again. I don't think anybody's no matter how many reigns, I don't think anybody's ever held a championship for 11 total years. So that's just goes to show, the WWE was built on the back of Bruno Sammartino in its beginnings. So we are down to the top 2. I think everybody can figure out who the 2 names are that are left. And this is an argument that has gone on and will go on forever. As far as who's number 1 and who's number 2. There are going to be people who agree with me. There's going to be people who disagree with me as far as my ordering here. And, that's fine. I mean, everybody's going to have their own opinion. This just happens to be mine. I'm not saying that this is, a definitive list and this is, gospel truth, because obviously it's not. But, for me, number 2 all time is Ric Flair. Officially 16-time World Heavyweight Champion, unofficially 24-time World Heavyweight Champion. The NWA revolved around Ric Flair in the 80s until it was bought by Ted Turner, and even then it still revolved around Ric Flair for a good amount of time. And to this day, Ric Flair is regarded as the probably the greatest world champion of all time, and that I can't argue with. John Cena, of course, hot on his heels, officially tied for a number of title reigns, but I don't think when it comes to being World Heavyweight Champion, to just that aura, I guess, of a champion, Ric Flair is the prototype. He's the one that I think everybody else is kind of held up to, and he founder of the Four Horsemen, and just probably the greatest heel of all time as well. And, I don't think anybody will ever match Ric Flair as far as just being a champion. So I think everybody can figure out by now, number 1 for me, greatest wrestler of all time is Hulk Hogan. A lot of people are going to disagree. A lot of people are going to agree. Some people are going to say he shouldn't be on the list at all because of, his recent history. But you can't deny that Hulk Hogan is the one that took professional wrestling to the mainstream, made wrestling, just kind of made it cool to watch again in the mid 80s when the whole Hulkamania thing started, and became a household name, and then moved on to WCW in the 90s, and another one who completely reinvented himself, and basically reinvented the business twice. And doing it once is rare enough, but to say I completely changed the game 2 times in a basically a 12-year span is unheard of. So for me, number 1 all time, just for elevating the business, contributions to the business, and as far as just popularity, name recognition, merchandise, everything all around, number one for me is Hulk Hogan. So that is the top 100 greatest male professional wrestlers, single professional wrestlers of all time. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there somebody I left out that should have been in there? Who should have been higher? Who should have been lower? I'm going to be posting the full list on social media after this episode goes live, so keep an eye out for that. And like I said, let me know what you think. So with that, I'm going to sign off for today. Hope everybody has a great New Year's Eve. Hope everybody stays safe. Just enjoy yourselves. Have fun. Thank you again for checking out the show. Hope everybody's enjoying it. Again, you can find it on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, any place you find podcasts, and you can always see the video feed on YouTube and Twitch. Make sure you're following on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's catchhookshoot@gmail.com. Now, I do have one other announcement I want to make right now. On January 27th for the Royal Rumble, I'm going to be doing my first live feed, live stream on Twitch. I'm not going to be streaming the Rumble itself because that would get my channel shut down in a heartbeat. But I am going to have a guest on the show with me, one of my buddies that did the show with me previously when we did the Smack Talk Showdown, and he also was with me when we did went through our various top five lists of all time. My buddy Rich is going to be joining me, and we're just going to be doing basically giving commentary on the show, giving our thoughts and our opinions. So yeah, check out the Twitch channel, watch along with us. Should be entertaining. We're going to I'm still working out the details of where we're going to be doing the live stream from. I'm trying to get it be able to do it at a local bar here, so anybody that's in Chicago, come down and join us. Once I get that all ironed out, I'll give the details on that. But even if that falls through, I'm still gonna do it either way. If it comes down to it, we'll just do it from my living room here. But yeah, January 27th, live stream on Twitch for the Royal Rumble, giving our own kind of alternate commentary, I guess you could say. And I am working to get my very first guest on the show. I don't have have no details to give about that at this time, but I have gotten, I've been putting stuff out there, making requests and things like that, and I have gotten some response. So I'm hoping sometime after the new year to be able to make an announcement that I will be having my very first guest interview on the show. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you all again, everybody who's been checking the show out and helping me grow. All of my new followers on Twitter. Thank you so much. I mean, I've grown from less than 100 followers to close to 500 followers in just a matter of a few weeks, and that is amazing. Thank you to everybody who has followed the show in the last few weeks. Thank you to everybody who's been listening and watching and downloading. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. I mean, I do this show strictly because I love wrestling. I love talking about wrestling, and that's the whole reason I started this up. Wasn't to get rich or anything like that. It's just because I wanted to give it a shot and see what kind of response I would get. And I'm very happy with the response I've gotten so far, and I hope it only gets better. I hope I've gotten better as I've come along here. As always, please give me any feedback that you guys might have. Whether it's comments on social media, questions, email, comments on my on the YouTube channel or on Twitch or whatever it might be. Just let me know what you think. If there's something I can improve, something you think I should talk more about, something I should talk less about. Just let me know what you think. I would love to hear anything from you guys. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Again, hope everybody has a fantastic new year. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive. Take an Uber, take a cab, take the bus. Do what you got to do to get home safe if you're going out and partying tonight. And with that, I'm going to sign off. So I hope everybody has a happy and healthy new year. I'll see you guys in 2019.